Hello, my name is Laurel Dosman, and welcome to my presentation on school system change for inclusion. Today, I will be looking at these three articles, starting off with McMaster's article, Building Inclusion from the Ground Up, a review of the whole school reculturing programs for sustaining inclusive change. The Lacala et al. Article, How to Make the Neighborhood School a School for All, and the Esposito et al. Article, Ensuring Inclusive Environments for Students with Disabilities. School leaders play a linchpin role. The McMaster article encompasses 6 U.S. states' inclusionary education practices and 2 Canadian provinces and 1 UK example. The Lacala et al. Article examines inclusive education programs in Finland, and the Esposito article looks at the role of school leaders, both teacher leaders and administration, in ensuring inclusive environments in schools. This brings us to the question, why inclusion? Through international legislation, including the Salamanca Statement, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the World Declaration on Education for All, the Conventions of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, as well as Canadian legislation with the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Canadian School Act. All of this legislation enforces inclusion of students with disabilities in neighborhood schools. It's the law, and it's time our education programs shift to better support these students across the board. In the articles, there was a consensus that the first step in inclusive education change in schools is to have an initial period of self-review and reflection where the schools work together to find a shared vision and create inclusive cultures as a part of their school community. The inclusive values of the school systems needs to be supported by the teachers, students, parents, and everybody involved in the community. As a part of this first step, there needs to be a school culture review. The intention of the school culture review is to improve inclusive practices or culture of the school as a focus to educational change. In the McMaster article, they state the features of the school culture review needing to be that there is an uncompromising commitment and belief in inclusion across the school site. There's the differences among students and staff are perceived as a resource. Teaming and collaborative interaction style among staff and students is really important. There's a willingness to struggle and to sustain practice. They have perseverance as a group. Inclusion is understood as a social and political issue, and there is a commitment to inclusive ideals communicated across the school and into the community. Schools need to work together to create a shared vision of what inclusion is and how it's going to look at their school site. When the cultural group takes common action based on the espoused values and assumptions and observe the outcomes, they create a shared knowledge. And when this is reinforced through practice, this shared knowledge transforms into basic assumptions or given truths at a school site. So in order for everyone to buy into inclusion in the school site, we need to work together to have a shared understanding of what inclusion is and how it's going to move forward. In the Lacala et al. Article, they stated that there were a few core values of inclusive educators. The first one is valuing student diversity. Student difference is considered a resource and an asset to education. The second is supporting all learners. Teachers need to have high expectations for all learners' achievements through effective teaching strategies and need to promote the academic and social learning for all learners. The third core value is working with others. Collaboration and teamwork are essential approaches for all teachers in inclusive settings, and there needs to be continuing professional development. Teachers need to take on the responsibility for their lifelong learning and need to maintain this as they become more adept in inclusive teaching practices. The second step is to start prioritizing areas for improvement or development and creating action plans to address these priorities. This can look like producing inclusive policies and making sure that policies promote the participation of all children. Teachers need to identify areas of growth, both as individual teachers and their professional practice in their individual classrooms, but also collaboratively as a school identify school-wide goals for improvement and plans for implementation as well. Professional development needs to be done over a period of time, reinforced with experience-based reflection, needs to be evidence-based. Teachers need to be given the time to explore these ideas and integrate them into their practice. And this needs to be supported by the admin, district, and the school system. One of the biggest contributors to inclusive education change in school systems is the school administration. School leadership plays a linchpin role in defining and fostering a culture that celebrates inclusion. Without support from the administration enforcing that inclusionary practices are the way forward, teachers are unlikely to fully adopt these practices as a school site as a whole. Lack of support from administration is one of the most frequently cited reasons for special education educators leaving the school system. If we don't, without educated specialists supporting students and teachers across the board, full inclusion and meeting the needs of all of our students is very unlikely. School administration needs to obtain and maintain some level of knowledge and competence in the area of special education. They need to be able to understand the needs and concerns of their students with disabilities and the issues facing their special education faculty, as well as promote evidence-based inclusion practices in their school sites. Next, school sites need to be constantly evolving as people expand their understanding and have growth in inclusive practices in their classrooms. There needs to be a cyclical reflection process and goal setting process at a school site to ensure that we are continually moving forward in best practice and continuing to support our students the best way that we can. Part of how we can do this is to create shared indicators of inclusion. Co-creating these indicators in a school site can be a good way for people to wrap their minds around collective understanding of what inclusion looks like for that school site and gives them access points to be able to reflect on where they are achieving inclusion and where they have areas that they can grow on. All inclusive policies need to be based on teamwork and networking between teachers, parents, specialist teachers like speech language pathologists, learning services teachers, occupational therapists, counselors, education assistants, and administration. Altogether, these are the areas that we need to start addressing according to these three articles on how we can improve altogether from the knowledge base in these three articles. These are some of the steps and processes that we need in order to make inclusive change in our schools. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Have a great day.